Okay, so we've got our keyboard set up and our bass guitar set up. The very last thing to set up is our drum set, and that is going to go right here in this space. There are these tape marks that are on the floor, so if I turn around right here, we can see those a little bit more clearly. This one right here on the bottom marks the kick pedal, and then these ones right here mark the cymbal stands. So I'm going to go ahead and get the shells out, and I'm going to place them. So we're going to have our kick drum, we're going to have a snare, we're going to have two toms, we're going to have our cymbal stands, and we are also going to have the module. So I'm going to get out all of the shells and I'm going to have them set up, and you will see what those look like in just a second. All right, so here is the kit all set up. It's taken me about 10 minutes to get to this point. So I've just got all the shells out and everything's in place. A couple things that I forgot to mention is our headphone amplifier right here. So this will have a cable that runs down along underneath here, and there will be a little ramp right here that we will run the cables through. I also forgot to mention that there is a talkback microphone that will also plug in and be routed along through here and will plug into our wall. I also lied, so remember those tape marks on the floor. These are not actually marking the cymbal stands right here. It's actually marking the legs for the kick drum right there. And then the cymbal stands just kind of sit in there in between. If you can see how that is set up right there. The cymbal stand right here, that cymbal is right here. Just kind of sits there nicely in between the leg and the shell. And the same thing on the other side for the ride cymbal. The stand just kind of sits in there nicely. Everything else is kind of set up for personal preference for the drummer. So I have sat down at the kit and I have played a little bit. I grabbed the sticks and I just kind of position things to where they feel good. Well, there's the kick pedal right there, sitting on the floor in the tape mark that it has. Yeah, so I've just spent the last 10 minutes or so just kind of getting everything in place just generally. And now I have to go get the module, and the module is going to sit right here behind the toms and behind our crash cymbal right there. So the module is just going to sit right here, and it's going to have all these cables that plug into it. So all of the triggers for each of the drums have an individual cable for each of them. There are some USB connections. So there's a USB for the ride and for the hi-hat and for the snare. Those all run on a USB connection into the module. So already at this point, it's been about 10 minutes of setup and just getting the shells out and in place and feeling good and just generally comfortable. So now is the hard part of getting all of the cables routed to each of the shells and then getting cables routed out to the wall output for our audio. So there is lots and lots and lots of cables that we need to run and we need to route and we need to make all of that look good. So that is going to take a very long time. That could take up to an hour. And if you're doing a good job, it should look good. So if it doesn't look good, you're not doing your job. That's what I think anyway. So next you see, I will have all of the cables plugged in and routed. I'll have the microphone and the headphone amp plugged in. So you'll see everything as it should look once it is complete. Okay, so here we have all of our cables run and routed from our module. So here is the module right here. And that has all of these cables. So these black ones are the audio cables. These clear ones down here are the triggers from each of the heads. And then there's these USBs for those digital triggers. And of course, there's power input right here as well on this little cable right here. So all of these cables will gather and run down the length of the stand. Everything is tied down. And then from here, we split off. There's the power brick right there. So, clear cables run off down underneath the kick drum. And then there is a tiny little spool down here where those gather and they just distribute out to each of the drums. So each piece of the kit is plugged in to the appropriate input on the module right here. Now these audio cables also run down the length of here, and then they gather, and then they run along here, and then they come into the ramp right here. Now here, nothing is plugged in under here, so if I open it up, you can see that it's just the ends of the XLRs that come out from here. So just like on the base setup, these are also TRS jacks that convert to XLR down here. So they output line level balanced outputs, and that converts from TRS to XLR. So these are going to be here, and the last step is going to be taking XLR cables from the wall output over there and then running them down underneath the light, running them into these channels, and then plugging them in. Each of these is numbered 1 through 8, and then on the wall over there, each of the inputs is labeled 1 through 8. So I'll just plug those in, and they will line up exactly 1 for 1. Right there, this is panel C, so C1 through C8 right there. C10 right here is the talkback microphone over here. So that is right here. And that cable just runs down underneath the kick drum and then just runs through here. It's just one of the cables that runs through here, comes underneath the ramp, down past the lights, and then plugs in right there. These two right here on the side, C11 and 12, those are the outputs for the headphone amplifier. So those just run right over here up to the headphone amplifier, and then those inputs are right there, left and right. Here is the headphone amp output, and that is just a cable that comes out, runs down the stand, down here, down, across through, underneath the lights, and then underneath the ramp, and then it comes out right here to this little spool right here. So there is the end of the cable that runs from the headphone amplifier. There's also power on the headphone amplifier right here, and that just, comes around the corner. There's the power for the headphone amplifier. Just runs around right here up to the amp. And that is where we are right now. And we're still not done. It's been about 40 minutes, maybe even 45 minutes, and I still have not gotten this done. 45 minutes plus the 10 minutes or 15 minutes that it took me to set up all of the shells and all of the pieces of the kit in the first place. So I am already about an hour into the work of this job, and I'm still not done yet. So yeah, so that's the point of this video, is that this is a big job. It's hard to do, but if you do it and you do it good, I mean, you can barely tell that the module is there, much less all of the cables that run to each of the drums. So if you do an excellent job, then it will just look like a drum set on stage, and that's exactly what you want. You probably don't notice a difference at all, at least from this angle. So now everything is completely done. It's been an hour and a half or so, but the drum set is completely hooked up and everything is plugged in. Every single drum and cymbal is plugged in to the module over here, and every single output from the module is routed down here through the ramp. And let me open this up real quick. And now you can see that there are connections here. So every single one of these cables is numbered. So you just plug in number 1 to number 1, number 2 to number 2, number 3 to number 3, and so on and so forth, all the way to number 8. There is our power right there. And also in the channel with the power is the talkback microphone cable and the headphone cable there for the headphone amp. And all of these cables will run through the channel and go underneath the light again, all the way down over here. And here's where everything is plugged in. Of course, there's a ton of cables here, and this is, this is pretty clean right here. So every single one of these cables is tied off and is individual, so nothing can get tangled up. It's really easy to tear down this way, because if you tangle up all of these cables and you're trying to tear down the drum kit, if all of these cables down here are tangled up, then you know, it's just a nightmare to tear this thing down. It takes just as long to tear down the drum kit as it does to set it up. So you don't want to give yourself more extra work by being sloppy with your cables.